Hello and welcome back to the FPL Tom YouTube channel, and tonight we have got something very, very special prepared for you. As you can see, I've got two special guests and very good friends of the channel. It is Golden Goal and FPL Fran. How are we doing, boys? We feeling good ahead of the new FPL season?
I'm very excited, mate. It's good to be joined by both you guys again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually looking forward to it. I think this is the first live stream I've done, so thank you for having me.
No worries, man. I thought after the Club World Cup one we put together, I thought we got some some good insight out of it. People really enjoyed it, so I thought we'd get the band back together for FPL, where I feel a lot. We kind of all specialise in it. Obviously, me and Tom had good seasons last year. Fran, your record pretty much speaks for itself as well. But bar last year, we'll not mention that too much. But every other year, impeccable, really, mate. What are we kind of making so far of the rule changes that have come into the game? Obviously, the defensive contribution points, the additional AFCON transfers, 2 sets of chips at the start of the season and towards after game week 19. What are we thinking? Do we like the changes that have been made? Do we disagree with some? I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
Let Fran go. Go for it, mate.
I mean, I think I love playing games, so it's one of those things where initially probably some of the reactions to the new rules, like let's say the AFCON transfers, probably goes against how we would traditionally like to play, maybe season-long fantasy games, and my point of view is probably quite pessimistic as well. But the reality is that those are the rules, and you kind of have to just learn to play with them. I think in terms of chips, like the changes shouldn't have a substantial impact in terms of the amount of points we got from chips last season, because you almost replace the amount of points that the assist manager used to give us, maybe reduce a little bit of the variance, and then actually allow for people to have different strategies a bit more with the double chips. So I think when people think about a pre-assist manager era, it's a huge change, but actually I don't think it's that big in terms of the double chips. As far as defensive contributions, which I'll actually pass over to Tom with, I think that's probably actually the most substantial change in the game and how we view like even the quality of an asset. I think that's fundamentally changed everything.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of the rule changes have obviously gone to the more casual players, and I think these defensive contributions probably favour us stats people a bit more, right? And I know in other fantasy games they have really good bonus point scoring systems, and I think this is FPL trying to keep up with that. And as Fran said, I think it unlocks a whole new set of players you can pick in the game as well, which I think is only a good thing, to be honest.
Yeah, I think from playing EFL Fantasy last year, which definitely incorporated some of the defensive contribution actions, you picked a much kind of broader range of players from the player base. There's players like Dimitru. There was a guy for Harrogate. Like Harrogate were terrible, but he was one of those players that absolutely smashed kind of their version of defensive contributions. And I think we're going to probably see that this year. Like how many people probably would have stacked like Murillo in their teams? Like when we were making all these mock drafts before this was announced, how many people had like Murillo, Anderson? You kind of were going for more the traditional fullbacks, the kind of more traditional way of playing the game. So I think it's really good. I think it's open, like you said, up a new range of players for us to select and give us a little bit of variance as well. But knowing the FPL community, we'll probably all find a template and we'll all be picking the same few players anyway after a few weeks. What we're going to do in today's stream is we're going to answer some questions from you guys in the chat, so do keep them coming in. I can see we've got some absolute legends already in the chat. Andy's in here, FPL Have a Beer's in here as well. Zen, one of our channel members as well. Thank you very much for coming out today, guys. Massively appreciate that. Make sure you're checking out everybody's channel on today's stream as well. Some cracking content already being posted in pre-season. One of my favourite pieces of content so far has been the cheat sheets from Fran. They're one of the best pieces of content you can do, especially with picking draft picks for your players as well. So yeah, some great content going out. But let's start off first with Tom's draft. I'll let you talk us through it, mate. Obviously quite a few template picks in there, but a few differentials I've not seen in anybody's drafts yet. So take it away, man.
Yeah, I think looking at this team on my screen, I've gone pretty heavy on the defensive contributions, haven't I? Kelleher, I'm going for a bench boost, so I've got Kelleher and Verbruggen as a double up at the moment. I honestly hate picking two starting keepers, but I think at the moment there's not a 4 million keeper that's like looking like he's going to play. So yeah, I think it makes sense to go for those two if I'm bench boosting. I've gone for Van Dijk because I'm not 100% sure Gabriel is fit at the moment, and I saw that he didn't actually do too badly for defensive contribution points last season, did Van Dijk? So I quite like him, to be honest, and I think. I know he didn't light the world up in terms of goals last season, but I do think he could be equally as good as Gabriel from set pieces, to be honest. I don't really see too much difference potentially between the two of them. And then who have I got there? Addison, Murillo, Steve, and Richards. They're all like hopefully defensive contribution monsters from teams that will hopefully get some decent clean sheets. Salah, I got a little bit carried away and put Xhaka in my team because I have a feeling he's going to be pretty good. I don't know what you guys think about Xhaka, but I've got a feeling he could be quite good, especially at his price point anyway.
Yeah, it was quite a weird transfer, I thought, when he came. Then he come like 17th in the Ballon d'Or nominations like 2 seasons ago to now be playing for Sunderland. It's a bit of a weird one, but yeah, I think I've seen a few posts on Twitter saying he's going to be really good for the ball recovery numbers. I guess it is just maybe his yellow cards. I'd have to see what his Bundesliga record looks like, but definitely for Arsenal he was a little bit of a card merchant. So maybe you've just added one of those in, but hey ho, maybe he's calmed down with his age as well.
We'll see. And to be honest, at 5 minutes, I think most weeks he can just sit on my bench when I don't need him. Palmer and Rodgers, I think it's pretty standard, to be honest. I struggle to see a midfielder at 7 million that's really better value than Rodgers, to be honest. So he's in my team. Cole Palmer, I just think with those Chelsea opening fixtures, I know he obviously didn't have the best end, terrible end to the season last year, but I think that was all like a confidence thing, and I think that's probably come back with the Club World Cup. So hoping it has at least. So he's in there. Watkins, Solanke, João Pedro. Watkins, I really like. I think he's still, I don't know if he's under 10% owned at the moment, but he's still, I would say, like relatively differential. And I would say as that differentials go, he's one of the safest ones you can pick because he's going to play every game, pretty much 90 minutes. Probably, I won't take penalties, but I think he's going to score. I think Watkins just guarantees you like 15-ish, maybe more goals a season, doesn't he? That's just what he does. I think Solanke's probably the same. João Pedro, I'm a little bit worried about his own ownership, which is the main reason I've gone for him. I think if his ownership was like 15% or less, I'd probably avoid him, to be honest. But I think he'll be good enough to open things up. I think that's basically everyone. Oh, and the second coming of Messi that we were talking about before the stream as well, Elliot Anderson, who looks like he could be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was going to ask you on João Pedro, the ownership thing. I think it could swing maybe in 2 ways. Yes, he's super high owned, but what happens if he starts getting some early substitutions, maybe some bench-ins, and his price absolutely nosedives over the opening few weeks? Are you worried about maybe that side of things? I'm just trying to give you a little bit of a different perspective on that.
I suppose that could happen. You're absolutely right. But I do think he's going to start up front for Chelsea for at least the opening sort of 3 or 4 fixtures in my mind. And I think if you've got a starting Chelsea striker with the fixtures they have for 7.5 million, I think it's good value.
Okay, it's a good looking draft. Fran, what are you making of it? Any picks you don't like? Any picks you do like?
I like the draft. I guess the only pick I wouldn't go with is this a bench boost one? Because we haven't really.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna hit it. Yeah.
Yeah, because Estev is probably like the only pick I wouldn't go with on a bench boost one. But it's not. It's like it's just semantics really. Like you can go for a Leeds player and maybe we still have some players there that can get you Seabit and a better bench boost one. But it's a strong draft, and actually, I was thinking about Sunderland penalties. Like, is there a world where Granit Xhaka can take penalties? Who knows?
Yeah, that might be one. That might be one to potentially monitor. Yeah, I think you make a great point about the bench boost if you're going to play that as well. A Leeds defender could be a great shout in there at 4 million. Is it Goodmanson, the new fullback they've signed? He's coming in at 4 million. So yeah,
I'll bear that in mind.
Looking in the chat, some people are saying Xhaka only picked up 3 cards last season. So that's a lot better.
Mad.
That's a lot better record than when he was at Arsenal. So maybe
how many reds?
Yeah, how many reds? Yeah.
I'm joking.
Just 3 yellows, but 8 reds. Before we move on to Fran's team, let's pick up some questions because we've had plenty coming in the chat. But people are asking about Pedro Neto. Do you think he's a good asset for the start of the season or not?
I think he probably starts maybe the first couple, but I just don't. I think it's the same story with Chelsea midfielders as last season. Really, they're other than Palmer, they're a bit of a lottery for me.
Yeah, I'd agree on that one, to be honest, mate. Thrown to you, Fran. Do you think Villa are good enough for a double up in attack with obviously Rodgers and Watkins?
Easily. I think these players are just fantastic because you know that they will give you the minutes, at least based on the present setup of the team. We know Rodgers had perfect minutes last season. Watkins doesn't really have that competitor now, and no one else at these sort of price points actually have competing fixtures that are that good. Like Semenyo is your equivalent 7.0. Gyökeres, you'd have to sort of really believe that Arsenal are that good in terms of attack because the fixtures aren't comparable. So I think that's the big difference there and why I'd be so confident if you owned both.
Yeah, agreed. I think the fixtures just speak for themselves, don't they? And you're at that price point where if maybe Gyökeres does cook over the opening for you and you want to bring him in for like the Leeds game, maybe if he looks really good against United, you've got that possibility to just make that easy switch. With going obviously for Watkins, but you could very easily just keep with Villa. The fixtures are great. I think it's only Newcastle, their only real difficult opponent up until match day 8, and then I think it's Spurs. And I mean, depends what Spurs turn up this year as well. So you could have him for 9 weeks in your team at the start of the season. And I don't think there's many teams you could comfortably say that for, especially around that kind of mid-price rather than the premiums as well. You mentioned Semenyo there as well. People are asking which of the 7 million Bournemouth attackers do you prefer? Obviously, we've got Semenyo. Is Kluivert at 7 this year? Or is he at 6.5?
Yep.
He's
he
at
is.
7. And obviously, Evan Nielsen up front as well. Which one would you go for if you had to pick a Bournemouth one in your side?
Yeah, I'd still go Semenyo because the minutes always there. His underlines last season were really strong. And Kluivert, he's a bit of a weird player where there was obviously a hot streak in the middle of the season, but a lot of that's getting a lot of penalties as well. I think that's not always a guarantee that a team will reproduce that many, but equally, if his minutes can sort of taper off like near the end of last season and he can be an early substitute, it's not really worth the risk. And Evan Nilsson, yeah, if he has to sort of share pen share, that makes him worse. But if there's a point where maybe like Kluivert gets sold or something like that, or he leaves, then that probably makes him a better pick eventually. But I'd take Semenyo any day right now.
Yeah, I think he was great for large pots. I think you had him for weeks, Tom. Did you not? Obviously, being a Bristol City fan.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I did, and to be honest, at one point I was actually going to sell him, and then he had a fixture against Man United, and for some reason I had to make another transfer, so I couldn't get rid of him. So I reluctantly played him, and then he scored, got an assist, did something crazy in that game, and yeah, he was a bit of a legend for me.
Lovely stuff.
I also think with Bournemouth, it's quite easy to get put off by that first fixture as well. Like once that Liverpool fixture's out of the way, they're absolutely fine.
Yeah, I think remember looking back at the 11ify numbers over the opening 6. I think they're one of the top teams for projected goals over that period. Like I said, once you get past that Liverpool game, if you can maybe get away with benching them for that game, you've got potentially some assets there that could be real differentials over the opening couple game weeks with potential as well. Who are the best 5.5 million pound midfielders? I'll take one from each. So I'll start with you first, Tom.
Can you come back to me?
Okay, all right. I'll do mine. I think I'm gonna go.
Oh no, I've got one.
Go on.
It's Elliot Anderson, isn't it? What am I saying?
You've taken mine away from me now. You know what? I'll throw a little bit of spice in there. I'm gonna go for a dinger. I think with that Burnley fixture in 2, if you're thinking maybe bench boost, could be an okay option. But I mean, compared to the GOAT Elliot Anderson, probably not as good. Fran, your favourite 5.5, if we haven't already stole it?
I mean, you guys are obviously leaving me a bit dry here, but I'll go maybe Sandro Tonali. Pretty good in terms of his Seabrit numbers. Actually, really offensive as well. Like XG dominant as a player. Hard to say whether that's like really reproducible or whether he actually just got a lot of tap-ins last season. But I'd have to imagine he's still going to play a lot of minutes because I look at the Newcastle midfield and they have no depth other than Lewis Miley. So.
No, yeah. Do you think maybe I was looking kind of with my first draft around at the 4.5 million? Do you think maybe Miley sees some minutes with European football this year if people are looking for a potential 4.5 million midfielder? I don't think it's the smart player. I think the right players probably finding that extra 0.5 to go up to a 5 million. But maybe if somebody is fancying a gamble, what do we think? Lewis Miley at 4.5 could be an option, maybe.
It's weird because, in a way, the way that they've created Seabred is they've almost taken out the need for us to go with the 4.5 midfielder, and because they've raised the price of the forwards compared to last season, I kind of think if you're going to have a bit of a 4.5 million player who doesn't offer much value, have good minutes, you'd have to do that in the forward position. So I would always spend that extra little bit of money this season on the budget midfielder.
Yeah, I think that's genuinely the sensible play. Right, let's move on then. Let's take a look at Fran's team. You will probably notice quite a kind of similar teams across the board with myself, Tom and Fran. Talk us through it, Fran. Obviously, quite a few similar players to Tom's draft, but a few different players in there as well. Obviously, looking at Tarkowski and Williams and Ndai. Talk us through those ones. And obviously, for people looking on screen, Ndai isn't going to be Fran's captain. It is going to be Salah for match day 1. So don't worry.
Are you sure?
Well, if you want to go
no.
for Ndai, it's a great fixture.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, so I mean, this draft, it's weird because I've not actually had Watkins in a lot of my drafts, but then the more I kind of almost ran the numbers for like midfielders, I kind of just realized me going with that Elliot Anderson was just sort of silly, or anyone within that price point, because I think if I was to spend, and a lot of my previous draft structures was like a 3-4-3, where 3 of my forwards were all quite playable, but from a value point of view, I just don't see why I need that third forward right now. Elliot Anderson is basically playable every single match, so I'd rather have some sort of setup where it's at its core, this is like a 3-5-2, but I don't mind playing a 4-4-2 at any point in time. Watkins and Solanke should be playable all the time. NDI will have bad game weeks, and I think he's someone, and he's at a price point where I can rotate quite a bit with other players that become a little bit more interesting to us as fixture runs change. Anderson is almost like a permanent plug and play. Mark Hughes going to do nothing, and I don't care about him. And then I've got 5 defenders who are all kind of C-bit monsters. I think the one thing I'll say in terms of the midfield is, before I put Anderson back in my team, I was kind of tinkering with going with Ismail Assar, because he's another player that I think season long has got really good value, but the fixtures aren't good enough, and then I guess trying to rotate to squeeze him in doesn't make sense when Elliot Anderson's just there. So a lot of the draft is sort of, as we said, hoping that Elliot Anderson is messy, and then I think the rotation isn't going to look as bad as it did previously, because I think if I had this draft last season, I'd probably rate it like a 6 out of 10 and tell whoever created this draft that you can't get away with playing a 4 or 5 at the back with some pretty mediocre defenders. But now someone like a 4.5 like Anderson, who has maybe like a base floor of maybe like 3 expected value on some tough games as well, that completely changes the value of some of these budget defenders and where you need, I guess, the budget player. And yeah, I think budget's actually quite loose this year. I know some people have been playing with no Salah drafts, but I think this is really solid. The only price point in the game that this draft sort of misses is that kind of midfielder at the 9.0, 8.5 range. And I don't really care about them. Like, I think Rodgers is more than good enough to hold his own. And he just simply has better fixtures than a Bruno or even a Wirtz to start with. So I don't feel like I'm missing much. And a lot of it is just, confidence in Seabrits. And where I don't have confidence in Seabrits, it's like, I say Seabrits, obviously I should say DEFCON, but it's sort of, in terms of expected clean sheets, it's like the value of Sanchez in that goalkeeping position. So we started the season, I think, wanting to go triple Chelsea probably. But I've still kind of kept that somehow with the 2 players here, and Sanchez hopefully gets to play football most of the time.
Yeah, one thing I was gonna bring up on this stream. Do you think? I think you kind of briefly touched on it there. There's going to be a change in formation that we're going to see from people's drafts, or team selections throughout the year, to be honest, because, like you said, the defensive contributions that people are going to be picking up has raised that base for a lot of players. So do you think now it is sustainable for people to go 4, maybe even a 5 back potentially some weeks if certain players have the right fixtures?
I think so. The weird thing is the cost it takes to actually get a good defender isn't very high. So
Mm.
you might actually be spending the same amount of money on defense, but the quality of defense is much better. So maybe the weird thing that people have to get around in their heads is it's actually okay. Let's say benching, I don't know, a 6.5 forward or a 6.5 midfielder at times who has a really mediocre game, um, and then actually playing someone like an Anderson instead. I think intuitively it doesn't make too much sense to people, but that for me is the change where maybe your default setup is still a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2, but there's still a lot of weeks where you can play your fourth and fifth defender really comfortably, and you should on the logic that you do trust the DEFCONs. Like I guess we're also stepping into that argument of I think Zoff posted this sort of poll on Twitter, which was like he kind of posted like a distribution of someone's points for 5 weeks, which was something like maybe to the effect of 2-1-9-2-2 6. Like let's say this is a midfielder's points compared to maybe someone who you're looking at mostly to farm Zebra sort of DEFCON. So like let's say Anderson like 4-4-4-2-4. And obviously I don't think I've got the math properly right, but he was sort of arguing in the case where let's say the Anderson player outscores the other player who has more, I guess, like sporadic point scoring, who would you rather have in your team? And to me, I mean, this game is all about points, so I would just pick the player who gets more points. And if it's Anderson, then so be it. I will pick Anderson. But I think that's the kind of argument that we're getting towards, right? How do you want to play this game, and whether you're appreciating how strong DEFCON is ultimately.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a big mentality shift for a lot of people this season, isn't it? Looking at DEFCON, and I think me and you have spoke about it kind of on WhatsApp, Tom, as well through the weeks and stuff as the game's been launched, saying we think people are massively undervaluing this. So I think, like you said, for the engaged managers this season that do have the ability to switch their mentality around, look at this new kind of way of scoring points, there could be a real big shift in gains that a lot of the engaged managers can do exceptionally well early doors, while everybody else is still trying to figure this out. If someone was maybe a little bit unsure why they should take DEFCON seriously, could both of you give maybe a little bit of an argument as to why they should? I'll start with you first, Tom. Give Fran a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I think it's basically what we've been talking about as well. If you convert the DEFCON points to attacking returns, so I think Anderson got 36 DEFCON points last season, which is, what's that, 12 assists. And he got 2 goals and 6 assists, I think. So add that all up, that would have been, 2 goals and 16 assists. Oh, no, 18 assists, sorry. So 20 attacking returns. That's the equivalent of points he got for a 5.5 million midfielder. So I think that's all you need to know to realise it's of good value, I think. And what other midfielders got 20 attacking returns? That's like Rogers levels, isn't it? I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he got 19 returns last year.
Yeah.
And was pretty much in everybody's team for large parts of the season. So yeah, great argument off the bat. Fran, anything to cover from you there? I think Tom did a great job of covering it.
Yeah, I guess like you can even take it like people now openly appreciate percentages, right? So when we go on Twitter and we see Rob T, we are comfortable with market odds, we're comfortable with clean sheet odds. And I think, to be honest, if you converted attacking numbers and you understand what XG per 90 is, XA per 90 is, a lot of people, even some of the best midfielders that we're talking about at the price ranges of, let's say, a 7.0, are really only going to have XG numbers of, let's say, like 0. Maybe 0.25 at the higher end of the range. And if you go down to, let's say, the 5.5 mids, the 5.0 mids, or even anyone in the forward position right now, like there's no one who can produce anywhere more than, let's say, 0.1 XG. No one who really produces more than like 0.15 XA. So when you kind of think about that, that's almost like 10% of getting a goal, maybe 15% of getting an assist. But then there are these players who are having, let's say, a 60% chance, a 55% chance of actually getting those 2 points. So when you do the math, it's like 0.6 for the goals in the very offensive open player scenario, who's cheap. And then let's say maybe like 0.45 for the assists, and that's like 0.55. And then when I said that there's a 5.5 player who can get you 2 points 60% of the time, that's already more than 1 point. And that's it. That's kind of like if you were translating everything and you considered them as if it was like open play actions, then yeah, it's way more realistic to actually get those 2 points in that sort of way. And I think that's a good way to see it as well.
Yeah, 100%. This is why I wanted to bring you on, Fran. You just have another level that you can go to with this stuff. And yeah, if anybody hasn't checked out Fran's channel already, I would highly recommend it. It'll completely change your perception on how you play FPL, especially if you're a beginner and getting into things and want to do better this season. Highly recommend Fran's channel. Right, before we move on to my team, let's have a look what's kicking off in the chat. Interestingly, I wanted to know, before we get some questions in, where are you guys at in terms of chip strategy? Obviously, I know, Tom, you spoke about bench boost game week 1. Have you thought about when you're playing your free hit, triple captain, wild card? Any thoughts so far?
Honestly, I'm pretty loose on the rest of the chips at the moment. I don't know if that's the right way to think about it or not, but I'm pretty flexible with all of them. I always tend to do that, to be honest, and it tends to work out okay. I think most people get to a point where they feel like the wild card, it's the right time to use it and stuff like that. And I think the only one that I'm struggling with really is the free hit. I just have no idea when to use that, to be honest.
Fran, have you thought about chip strategy, bench boost game week 1 maybe, or are you delaying it a little bit?
If we get a 4.0 goalkeeper, I'll consider it. But for now, I'm not considering bench boost 1. I think that there's a general argument to be made where it's not that important of a chip and people overrate the importance of it. So I think if your draft is always going to look exactly as it was, and with maybe 1 to 2 changes tops, and that's the difference between you bench boosting 1 or not, maybe actually you can pursue a bench boost 1. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I suppose I've also played the game enough, and I think there's enough value now in a lot of the cheaper positions where the way I see it is when I wild card 2, for example, I think I can still create a decent natural bench boost later in the season. So to maybe create my first draft and try to build a really nice, optimal game week 1 team per se isn't something that I'm quite looking for, because I'm probably going to misjudge a lot of players from a game week 1 perspective, not in terms of the bench boost, but just in terms of if I'm overweighting different things in my draft and how important that will be. So I'm hoping that the quality of the bench will maybe be a bit better later in the season when we actually have a better handle on some of the budget players, and maybe what we hold to be true, like Elliot Anderson being so good, is it can change, or maybe he has competing picks, and you can see something like, for example, in Tom's draft where he's got a 5.0 mid and a 5.5 mid. It might be the case that could be a dominant structure going forwards because Xhaka is a lot better than we think. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about, and in that sort of world, you can definitely find like an extremely good bench boost later in the season. So those are my thoughts on that. As far as free hit, I've seen 3 at 3. It's quite nice, but it's really just getting all the players that you don't have in what is, I suppose, the template game week 1 draft, as opposed to it's an amazing game week in of itself. I think Ben's overarching point on, and also just like seasonally, when we look at the last few seasons, we've had some surprise suspensions almost every year. I think if I was to put odds on it, and I don't have good calculations on the weather, I think there's other people on Twitter who can do that for us, but there's probably going to be some sort of suspension, and maybe that kind of gives us a better angle on a free hit, or even a slightly better triple captaincy. And triple captain is probably the chip that impacts your strategy the least. You just have to, be proactive 1 week and press the button. So
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at on chips. But I think bench boost 1 is really strong. I just don't like going for a 4.5 goalkeeper plus Sanchez right now. I just like Sanchez by himself.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there. I've always been very kind of... I'm trying to find the right word to use here, but I don't like goalkeepers in this kind of game. So I was thinking maybe of just bench boosting with a 4 million goalkeeper, even if they don't play, because I'm thinking what's their highest upside? It's probably going to be maybe like 6, 7 if they get a clean sheet with some saves. But at the same time, am I missing out on like 2 points? Is it really worth me spending that extra 0.5 million when I could upgrade, as we'll see in a second with my draft? I've got 2 4.5s. Or I could just go and get Sanchez and a 4 million and just, I might miss out on 6, but is it really going to be that big a deal? That's kind of where my head's at with the bench boost as well. Is it going to be worth me maybe missing out on a 5 million goalkeeper to go and have two 4.5s that could just get me 2 points in game week 1 for a bench boost. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know what you guys think of that.
Yeah, it's for me. It's just how many clean sheets do I predict Chelsea to keep? I think he's the only 5 million keeper I go for is Sanchez. It's that or Kelleher for me. I think.
Yeah.
And then if I go Sanchez, I probably don't bench boost.
Fair enough. Fair enough. A lot of questions about Forest defenders we're getting in the chat. People asking us to compare. So, Tom, who's your favourite Forest defender out of the lot?
I've got Murillo in my team, so I guess I have to say him. But I think Milenkovic didn't do too badly for the DEFCONs, did he? And he does offer a lot of goal threat. He's just massive, isn't he, from set pieces? And I think last season they finished on basically the same points. So I guess you go back to which of the two is more predictable. It's probably Murillo getting DEFCONs than Milenkovic getting attacking returns. So I should probably say Murillo, I think.
Okay. Fran, your favourite Forest defender?
It's Nico Williams. I think he's just really good at DEFCON, like to a surprising extent. He's one of the few fullbacks, outside of maybe Munoz and Fulham fullbacks that actually produce numbers anywhere close to some of the top options. And I think I was looking at his numbers compared to Aina last season. He played, I think, 4 to 5 less 90s compared to Aina, but had 13 games where he would have hit that threshold, and then Aina would have hit 5. There's obviously a bonus sort of impact. So like Murillo and Aina, I think, get a lot more of the ball. So in game states where everyone does nothing, not touching Siebert, it's a 0-0. I guess those two players will get bonus more often. But I think with how solid and consistency DEFCONs are, I like Nico Williams because his XGI is also actually a touch higher than Murillo's. But it's all very, very close. And I think the difference in price point between, let's say, Murillo and Milenkovic versus the fives is fair. I just think maybe Nico Williams is probably a bit closer to the 5.5s, and he's the one that I'd go for. Because when I look at, let's say, a team like Everton, for example, do I feel comfortable going for a 5.0 pick from that team outside of maybe like O'Brien if he's nailed to start the season, Branthwaite's injured? Not really. Like I wouldn't really want to touch an Everton fullback. So the fact that you can actually pick a player who's a bit cheaper, and I don't think you lose too much from it from a value perspective, is quite nice, and I tend to shop a bit cheaper.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to look at Nico Williams after this glowing review you've given him. I'm going to have to do a little bit more of a research in depth. I've currently got Murillo. I'll bring up my team now, but yeah, I've got Murillo in the draft that I'm showing here. But I am trying to find that extra 0.5 because I do want Sanchez. I'm not a big fan of the 4.5 million goalkeepers that we've got this year in the game. I think Kelleher, a lot of unknowns heading into Brentford's season. Now, I'm quite bullish on Brentford. I think the way that they set up as a club probably won't affect them too much, and I think people are maybe overestimating it. But still, I don't want to take that risk and maybe have just a little bit too much bias towards them. Brighton, I mean, yeah, there's rumours circulating today. I saw loads of people leaving comments on a short I did and a TikTok I did around Verbergen. Apparently he's injured. I haven't heard anything on this, but people in the comments of those videos were saying that he potentially is. So maybe, yeah, like I said, I'm going to have to look into some Nico Williams, maybe swap out Murillo, and that gives me the money to go to Sanchez and keep a 4.5 million goalkeeper for a bench boost in game week 1. But yeah, let me talk you through the team then. So we've got a back three of Virgil, Tarkowski, Murillo. In goal, we've got Kelleher and Verbergen as the two 4.5s. A midfield of Salah, captain, and Dye, Palmer, Rogers, and Anderson. Very similar to what we've already spoke about. Up front, we have Watkins and Solanke. Then I've got Konza and Richards. And then I've got, is it pronounced Gui? Is that the right pronunciation of the guy who's gone to Sunderland? Is it Gui? Or am I butchering that?
I mean, to be honest, I think you is probably how to pronounce it, but I actually don't know.
I'm gonna just call him Mark. I'm gonna play it safe. We'll go with Mark. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Obviously, I know Konza's DEFCON numbers are abysmal, and the reason that I had him in there originally was I had Gabriel, and he rotated quite nicely with the Arsenal fixtures. But obviously, if I'm maybe taking away from what we've learned in this kind of Q&A that we've been doing here, is maybe I just need to be a little bit more flexible and think, is there weeks where I'm going to probably play a 4-back or maybe a 5-back and pick one of those defenders that you guys have outlined at that 4.5 million price point, like the Andersons, or maybe drop my goalkeeper and look at a 5 million potentially and just fully go in on DEFCON for the defenders. But I'm pretty happy with the draft. I'm open to the floor, seeing what you guys think. Obviously, we've got quite a lot of similar players, so I can't imagine the reviews are going to be too damning here.
No, it looks really good, mate. The only thing this is probably prejudice, really, but I just can't bring myself to pick James Tarkowski in my fantasy team at 5.5 million. It's a great team.
I think he'll be good. He missed quite a bit of last season, if I'm not mistaken. Did he only play like 30 games? So would have missed eight or 7 potential games there as well. Obviously, Everton for years now have been very, very good defensively. Obviously, that was more under Dyche, but those numbers continued under Moyes as well. I am maybe thinking, though, does Moyes go a little bit more progressive this season, potentially? But given the summer window, it still doesn't feel like Everton have got the budget to be a little bit more of a progressive club. They've still got to play, kind of that low block football. But I mean, that worked for Forest.
It's the Everton way, isn't it? It's the Everton way.
Hey, it worked for Forest last year and they nearly got Champions League out of it. So I'm sure Moyes will have put his blueprint together and gone, that'll do. That'll work for this season. What are we thinking on Solanke? Obviously not featured yet in pre-season and not a player we've spoke about either in today's stream. What's the point where we start to look at replacements for Solanke, if he doesn't start to see minutes in pre-season? Let's say he only sees maybe like 45 on the last game. Would that be enough for you guys to go with him in game week 1? Or would you need to see a little bit more from him?
Yeah. If he doesn't show much in pre-season, I'd probably just consider going Wood. But I'm a huge Strand Larson fan. He just doesn't have the same kind of quality of game week 1 game, but I tend to think that Solanke is someone who's very fit, but then last season that was actually a huge buildup of different sort of injuries, so a dramatic change from that Bournemouth season where he was playing through everything, and I think he was playing injured for a large amount of the season too. I think Thomas Frank's probably a bit cautious with the injuries as well, just looking at his own sort of management of players, but yeah, Solanke feels like one of those picks where it's very hard to go without him, because when you look at almost the spread projections, I would say he feels like the most underpriced forward in the game. I'm sure some people will not take that kindly because he only scored 9 goals last season with like 2,200 minutes. But you have to think that Tottenham are going to be a lot better this year. And he's not someone I really want to bet against at the start. So I'd have to be super confident he's going to have reduced minutes, and that might be like Frank saying something like he's going to have his minutes managed, because with Tarkowski, for example, I think I was just waiting for him to just show up once, and I'd be comfortable with him sort of being in my team. I would still feel the same way about Solanke now, unless, given more information.
Yeah, we're getting a few questions about Mateta as well in the chat. Obviously been smashing goals in pre-season. Tom, has he entered any of your drafts, or any of your thoughts with his pre-season form that he's showing, or do you not value pre-season form?
It's one of those where you say you don't value it, and then you see he's been banging them in, and it catches your eye, doesn't it? I just think he's 7, isn't he, Mateta? Is that? Oh no, he's 7.5 as well. Okay. No, I just think Solanke and Wood are probably a step above. And then if you don't want Solanke or Wood, I think you should go down to Strand Larson and save $1 million, to be honest. We didn't really cover the 6.5 million strikers yet, but I think Strand Larson and Welbeck are perfectly decent options as well.
I was going to ask about Welbeck. Obviously, they spent a fair chunk of change on their 2 Greek forwards that they've brought in. And obviously, Welbeck is getting on a little bit. Are we maybe worried about Welbeck, or do you think he's fine for the opening few weeks?
I definitely don't think he's a season keeper, but I think for the first few weeks he'll do just fine. Especially if I imagine a lot of people will wild card early. I think in that circumstance, Danny Welbeck's fine for me.
Fair enough. We're getting a few questions as well about Alexander Isak potentially going to Liverpool. What do you think that does to the game if that moves happen? Do you think a lot more people are going to maybe switch away from Salah drafts? Do you think he's going to be one of the most highly owned players? I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on what it would do for your teams. Would you switch away from Salah, or would you maybe give it a few weeks and kind of monitor the situation?
Um, so I mean, when Ekitike signed, I was looking at Salah's season-long goals and it dropped a bit, but that tends to happen when you have a striker option who probably takes a little bit more goal share, and that player has really good XG per 90, and will probably shift the spread of goals and assists around. But I also think if Liverpool are getting better players who will get higher XG, I mean, surely Salah, who's heralded as an extremely creative player, will probably have that drop in goals offset by what would hopefully be some additional assists. And then I think the other case in point is just how good do you think Haaland is, and how good do you think maybe even Anomium is? And right now, I think the budget's still quite generous. So I'm not sure if I love the idea of just having Palmer as my dominant captain and then sort of filling the rest with like a rotating pool of different players, because Arsenal don't really have great games. So it's not like Palmer Saka really matches up to a Haaland plus Palmer or a Salah plus Palmer. So I guess it just, as I said, goes back to that Haaland piece. And Haaland didn't have a great season. I think from what I can see, the markets are projecting a really good City season. Like they have like them close to Liverpool and Arsenal in terms of like, let's say, points. And then when I look at like goals for the season, they're expecting a huge improvement in City. And I'm still not there yet. I think I'd probably just start the season with Salah and then reassess. Because it's just not really going to hurt you too much going without.
No, yeah, I agree. I was gonna actually ask you both a question on that. Would you prefer a Haaland draft ahead of a Salah draft? And I think Fran's kind of answered that one. What about you, Tom? Are you team Salah or team Haaland for the opening few weeks?
Yeah, I think I'm team Salah, and I remember watching a podcast when I first got into fantasy football from a guy that had previously won another, it was the Sky game, who said you can't win the game at the start of the season, but you can almost put yourself out of contention in the first few weeks by taking a punt that doesn't work out. And I think that could be the case with going Haaland over Salah, at least to start with. I don't think, as Fran said, you're not going to serve to lose much if you start with Salah. And the worst case scenario is you pick Haaland, he's your captain for the first few weeks, and Salah just absolutely bangs them in, and you don't have him. That's almost season over after a few weeks, isn't it?
I mean, it could be. Or some of us might have done that last year and went without Haaland for the opening 5 game weeks. But, I pulled it back in the end. It did take a lot of work, though. I will give you that. There was many weeks of, let's say, embarrassment. And if you've definitely not got the patience for it, I think probably playing the sensible strategy and going for Salah is going to be the right route. Because otherwise, you will get ridiculed a lot. And if you're playing with, obviously, your mates in your mini leagues and you want to do quite well this season, probably don't go without Salah would be the shout. Right, let's do a couple quick fire questions before the team's call boots us off. Someone said thoughts on James Maddison, an option, yay or nay?
I just think you can do better. He's all right, but you can do better, I think.
Yeah. Let's have a look. What other questions we've got? We did the Mateta one. What have we got coming in now? Do defensive contribution points get bonus?
No, but I guess by completing some of the things that lead to it, you can rack up your BPS.
Yeah. Do you think the change in the way that tackles are now measured is going to impact defenders for BPS?
Are they measuring it by like a non-completed tackle? So you don't have to retain possession after making the tackle. You just have to like make contact with the ball, because that'll break it if that's the case.
So if I remember reading it correctly, last year it was on the amount completed compared to the amount like taken or done, whereas now it's just if they make the tackle, that's fine. Like there's no kind of, I'm trying to think of the right word, way of like losing points because they're trying to make tackles anymore. So I think that definitely is going to impact it a little bit, especially for those more active defenders. You're thinking Murillo, Tarkowski, those ones that are a little bit more active. What other ones have we got? Trey Hume, any thoughts? I think he plays for Sunderland. I'll just put Sunderland players in general. They've got a nice start to the season. Have you considered any Sunderland players? Obviously, we spoke about Mark being an option at 4.5. Tom's got Xhaka. Are we confident on Sunderland starts the season, or not really? Just kind of bench fodder options.
No, I have zero confidence in Sunderland, and I think they're going to struggle, regardless of how much they've spent, because they pretty much came up to the Premier League with the worst squad possible. So
Yeah.
Sure, they spent a lot of money, but I still don't see how they're anywhere close to hopefully getting out of a relegation spot.
Agreed. Which player is the most underpriced?
I'm going to be safe and say Elliot Anderson, but I don't necessarily think he's massively underpriced.
No.
It could maybe Solanke. It could be Solanke, couldn't it? If he scores like 20 goals, which he's entirely capable of, that's probably underpriced, isn't it?
Thoughts on Daniel Marlon? Doing quite well in pre-season. Minutes look quite good as well. Is he maybe a cheaper alternative to Rodgers, are we thinking, or not yet? Rather go with Rodgers for the kind of security at the start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't touch him. I think you're still going to see maybe some minutes from other players coming off the bench, and at that point, one of the things that we never had in the past is that sort of deliberation of if you pick someone who had really poor X-Mins or worse than, let's say, a nailed option, you just didn't really have a comparison at that sort of price point. But now, if you're priced as a risky X-Men's player, you're just competing versus DEFCON midfielders, and so I wouldn't take that head on, I suppose, as a bet.
Yeah, agreed. Final question then before we wrap up. What about Raul Jimenez? Do we like him at the 6.5 million price point, especially if maybe Muniz goes to Leeds? Do you think he becomes a good option at 6.5 if that's the case?
I just like Strand Larsen the most at that price point, I think, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right. Sweet. I guess we'll leave it there, guys. Thank you very much for your time on this Friday evening. Massively appreciated. Like I said, chat, make sure you're going and checking out FPL Fran and Golden Goal. Both these guys are putting immense content out over the course of pre-season. We'll be back next week with some more streams as well. And yeah, I hope everybody enjoys the weekend. And thank you very much, guys, for your time. Sweet. See you all. Bye-bye.